Hello, hello, hello. Good night, everyone. How are you doing? It's raining, and I know you're settled. Some of you might be out and about, and others are just relaxing. Well, I want to talk to you about a topic that many folks have dealt with. Today, on my earlier, we had our I do have a 3 p.m. Sabbath Zoom. It's called a Sabbath Refreshing Zoom. And so on that, Reverend Love, who's a licensed therapist and a chaplain, she dealt with the topic of grief. And, a lot of us grieve loss, loss of some kind. It's not always only the loss of a person. Some grieve the loss of a pet. Some, this gentleman, one of my board members, um, Mr. Cohen, he had posted a map about, people relocating. And so, that's another issue. Some folks have lost best friends because or family members that have relocated or have moved across country, have moved to certain part of the country, and maybe it's not easy for them to travel to or whatever the situation is, and maybe they've kind of like lost touch. So there is also that loss, that grieving that relationship that you had when you were in close proximity. You may have lived in the house with the person could have been a family member or a friend, a neighbor, or maybe they moved to another country. And that too, I remembered when a very good friend of mine went back to England, and we communicated for a while, but after a while, you know how it is. And we still keep in touch somewhat here and there. However, the relationship, the friendship that we had, where we spoke pretty much daily. I'd be over there, or the kids, or her kids are here, or my kids are there. That kind of relationship that was no longer there, and so I truly missed that friendship, and just having that friend that you can go and you could just relax. You can be like if you just needed another place to be, if you're going through, you might be upset and you don't need to talk. The friend that greets you, sees you're upset and go, sit, that kind of a thing. And, might put something on the television and you sit, and nobody's saying anything, but it's ministering, it's soothing, and it is always great to have that kind of a friendship. So I had to grieve that loss, and then but in the grieving the loss, I actually appreciated who she had been to me and my family, and so and I was able to move on. But I really did I honestly truly missed her. And so we have to, it can be the loss of a job, it can be the loss of a, if I said pet before, or a marriage, or someone you were dating. Sometimes some folks date for long periods of time, and so you have invested time in another person. You've shared your life, you've grown together for a while, and then suddenly comes the chasm, where that separation, where you have to cross. There's a divide that you just can't cross. But grief is it's something that many of us have had to deal with, especially after 2020 and COVID. And I remember this one lady, she lost 22 family members, 22. And, to lose just one person whom you love is more than many can deal with. But as I said before, so folks are going through a lot. Some folks have lost unborn children. That's a loss. That baby that was being formed, that you were looking forward to naming and growing up with, in a way, you know what I mean? Watching them grow up and sharing a life with, and appreciating them for who they are, and pointing them to purpose. And then you lose that child, and there's an emptiness in your womb, like a giant open hollow nothing. And, like, words can't even express, you know what I mean? Like, just like even me trying to put that into words, having been there. But so I just wanted to talk about, like, coping with grief, because sometimes the loss, and it's not to say there is one way to grieve or not. The only thing I will say is that not to allow grief to take us down into depression, where we get really under the bottom of the barrel. And some of us have had serious bouts of depression. Um, and I remembered when, um, you know, I, you just have to, you can grieve through, mourn the loss of. And I was speaking to Jessie just now earlier, and, she said to me, you know, to honor the grief, like, okay, this is how I feel. And I'm just going to rest in that feeling right now. Acknowledge that you're grieving. Like, this is how I'm feeling. Cry it out. I, you know, Crying is such a release. Cry it out. And if you have to, write it down. Like, one way I've dealt with certain issues in my life, um, you know, divorce, loss of baby, um, family members. Whew, yeah, lots of stuff I've gone through. But one of the ways I've dealt with a lot that I've gone through is to write write them down. Like, I would write on the paper, write how and then I would burn the paper. Or I'd rip it to tiny shred. That was just because sometimes you go through things and you really can't even express, like, even as you're writing, you're just writing your thoughts. You know how sometimes when we're going through grief or other issue, whatever we're feeling, we can't even like, form the words of, like, what am I thinking? You're just in a space and going through. So, write it down. So I usually just write it all out. Sometimes there's tears falling on the paper as I write, but it's very cathartic for me. And so at the end of that, I usually just burn the paper, or like, wash it to shreds. And for me, it's like, okay, I've written it, it's out there, it's out of me. And now I'm washing it away, or I just burn it all up. And then I usually take a shower, because if I have any tears left in me to cry, I let them out with the shower. And I used to just, like, let the water just fall from my head all the way down. So, and it feels so good when you're through. So, some of the ways to cope, and to not go down into the abyss. We can, buy something to pick yourself up. Jessie she said she loves buying flowers when she gets down. And recently she rediscovered or her purpose, right? And now she's found a new passion. Because when she buys flowers, she started to do floral arrangements. So that's, that's one way of coping. And as she makes the arrangements, it helps to lift her spirits, from the loss she had suffered recently last year. So um, the thing is, so we you know, oh, oh, it was earlier. Oh, my Lord. I'm just, sometimes that's the other thing. Sometimes you go through something and you're like, okay, let me put this away. Let me push this to the back of the closet, kind of the back of, you don't want to think about it, and then it resurfaces. Oh, but the thing about it is that we can do things that um, will we can use our senses, yeah, sense of touch, our sense of smell, our sense of seeing. So and that we can use that to draw us away from the negative thoughts, the thoughts of guilt, or the thoughts of the grief. Not hold on. Reverend Love was speaking about not holding on to grief so tightly that you can't be healed. Sometimes when we're grieving, we hold on to the grief and we don't want to let go, as if we're holding on to the thing or the person. But it's in actuality, when we're holding on to grief that tightly, then we're not being healed. We're not getting the healing that we need to move on. And when it is that we've lost loved ones, it's so to honor their memories, we have to go on, because we know they wouldn't want us to give up. Or, they certainly wouldn't want. I remember when I lost my brother, who I was very close with, and I thought, well, this is it. Life ends. There's no need to live. And, you know, uh, but no, it was worth living just to honor his memory and for who he was. And, since him, that was my first like major loss. Since him, I've lost other family members, but God has seen me, including my mom, my dad, my grandmother, people who are very close to me. And so uh you know if you love nature, that you can go out in nature, maybe you can paint. If you love flowers, you can go to the botanic gardens. You can um and this is something that I found. um and Jessica was saying, distract your thoughts, and I loved that, because it's true. I agree with her. Distracting your thoughts, which is something that I have done. I remembered when I lost one of my bambinis. I used to draw, and I used to um, write poems. And I would draw a poem, I would draw a picture and write a poem. And I used to give it away. And I would give it to folks, or I design cards for folks who were going through difficult times. So in actuality, even though in order for me not to sink into depression, what I did was, whenever I knew anyone going through anything, I would do something to cheer them up. Right. And even if you don't draw or you don't write, maybe you bake, and maybe you cook. Maybe when you go shopping to lift yourself up, of a neighbor or kid or somebody going through something, you think about maybe even a scarf or something you think they would like, and you pick up something for that person. And even the act of doing something for someone, this is, let me tell you something, it gives you such great pleasure. Like I cannot even talking to you now. It's just the feeling. There's no um it's the joy it gives to you. It's a joy that is unspeakable. It's indescribable. You really can't put it into words. Just that. Wow. Um You're just doing that for someone. And I find for me, sometimes when I go through difficult moments or, sad moments, I remember when when I had postpartum depression, like when I went through certain things in my life, I I would go out and do something for someone, or I've said this many times, y'all know I love nature, right? So my peace, right? I find joy. And I heard a song, My Pain is Ended Right Now. Okay, not singing time. But anyway, the song just came to mind. I've found joy, I've found peace. And so um ways of getting coping when you're going through um grief or sadness, right? Even when you're angry, I find if in anger, and I know it's totally, but it's part of the grieving process. Sometimes as like you're angry and you're shouting and you're going. I'm talking about when you yourself are doing this. Reverend Love spoke about when a person lashes out when they're angry, and I always agree. I agree with her. Hurt is at the bottom of that, right? The root cause, hurt, pain, right? Some kind of pain. When a person lashes out, it's pain, it's hurt. They're angry because someone or something hurt them, right? However, I would say if it's you though, and you're angry and you're lashing out and nobody knows, sometimes what I found, and this I would do, like in the middle of being angry, I would just stop and count backwards. I'm so serious. Like I would start at 100. Like if you're not very angry, maybe you can start at 10. And in the middle, you just, because you know something, anger is an emotion that rises. I've discovered this. I've experienced it. Like seriously, I remember getting angry and feeling it rise up. And so to counteract that, like I said, if I stop, you can close your eyes or not, but I've closed my eyes. And then I just start counting back. And while I'm doing that, sometimes I would envision me being in a different space, in a different place. And my go-to places, right? The beach or the park, right? Or something like that. And, but whatever it is for you, maybe if you're a baker, maybe also the smell of bread. Oh my goodness, the smell of bread. So that's another thing, if what the sense that would be most affected, or sometimes you can go into like Macy's or Saks, the places where they have beautiful fragrances that you love to Nordstrom, and places that you love smelling the fragrances. You can go there and even just passing through. Now if that's not your thing, sometimes bakeries, sometimes it's the smell of cookie doughs. As to my bakery smell is bread. Seriously, I love smelling bread. So, but whatever will distract your thought from going down the rabbit hole, whatever will help to lift you out. And of course, praying and praising. Let me tell you something. Praising, when you put on a good praise song, a good, and you may not, I've said this before too. You may not, I don't know, I've told you guys, well, I don't know if it's this group, if it was on here, but it was somewhere that I've said this. I remembered being so sad, being so down, being depressed, and walking like I don't even remember how many miles I walked. And I was singing the same song over and over. And when I started singing the song, my spirit was so down that I wasn't really singing it. I kind of was speaking it. I was just saying the words. And I'll never forget, I just kept saying it over and over and over. And then I started to sing, and I didn't feel like singing. There were times when tears were coming, but I kept on going. And then at a certain point, it just broke. It just, that depression broke. And it was as if the cloud with the rain, the dark cloud that was over my head lifted, and the sun came out and the birds started singing. And I found myself walking faster, and I heard me singing, like singing the song. So, praising, that's another way of really being, lifted out. My husband was just talking about that, when he's going through with his thoughts, and, that praise helps to break that off him. So whatever works for you, pray always and ask the Lord to help you. And while you're doing that, as I said, you can help someone else who's going through something. And if it's if the person is going through a similar thing to what you've gone through, that's going to help you even more. Because guess what? That person is going to say, wait a minute, here's someone. And look, now you're going to even have a ripple effect of better, right? It's like paying it forward or passing it on. So that person being helped by you will in turn look to help someone else. And then you see that seed growing for good, right? And what the enemy meant for evil will certainly be turned around for good, right? So, no matter where you are, what are you going through, whatever stage of grief you are, the stages of grief, we know we have denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Whatever stage you are going through, whatever it is you've lost, whether it's a relationship, it's a person, it's an animal, and not to compare anything with the other, but all loss is loss, and the loss that a person is feeling, that loss is deep for that person. And we have to learn to respect that for everyone, and to know that, yes, acknowledge that you're grieving, go through it, but don't allow it to take you down into the rabbit hole. And so you can refine your purpose through when you try to distract your thoughts, because that's what it is. It's the thoughts, it's the memories, it's the, and once we start dealing with the negative thoughts, that's what's going to take us down into the rabbit hole. But if we distract ourselves, if we find something else to do, if we say, you know what, I'm going to have a good cry now, and I'm going to drink some coffee if you drink coffee, drink some tea if you drink tea, and maybe instead of doing it alone, call up a friend or a person you know or a family member and say, hey, would you like to have a cup of tea with me? And listen, they don't have to come to your house or you have to go to their house. They don't even have to be in the same country with you. Now you can get on FaceTime or Zoom or whatever platform you're on, and you can say, hey, and you look at the person, whether it's FaceTime or Zoom, make sure it's something where you can see the person, and you just sit, you have your coffee, you have it. And in the and you know what else? If you say, hey, how about you take the phone or the camera outside? Let me see, your weather, the weather that's there, or what's happening. Let me see your backyard or whatever it is. And you take yours outside. Guess what? You're going outside. That's one thing you're doing. And now you're extricating yourself from that emotion or that place where you were emotionally and physically as well. And now you're in a different space, in a different place. And so by the time you return, you have a whole different perspective, right? So I do pray that these suggestions will help, because especially in this time that we're really living in, where so many things are happening at the same time, and all of us have faced something, or we know someone who has faced some kind of a, a loss in some way, shape, or another. And so, this is something you can do. And remember this: you are the answer to someone's prayers. You may not have thought of it, but I tell you why I say this. I remember one time there was a young man that my family and I, we used to go and visit. Oh my goodness, I don't know where he is now. When Sandy came, we lost touch, and because we weren't related, and the nursing home had closed for a while because of Sandy, because it was the place is in Far Rockaway. I lost touch, and I don't know where he is. I pray he's still alive, uh, but I don't know. But anyway, I remember, so my family and I, we used to go visit with him, worship with him, bring him little things, ask him what he wants, spend time with him. And I remember, never forget this one time. I was home and the Lord said we needed to go visit him. And, I said to my husband and kids that we have to go visit him. And I was, I had asked to make a tape, a CD for his CD player for him with some songs. And, we were getting some things together to take to him. But what I remembered most of all, and what stood out for me and my family as well, was that when we got to the nursing home, as soon as we got off the elevator and we walked into his room, the first thing he said was, "I prayed and asked God to send you here this week." That's specific. He said, "I prayed and asked God to send you." And one of the nurses aide came in, and she said, "Oh, you're here." And she said to him, "Oh, you called them, you called them." He couldn't use the phone because his limbs were atrophied, but she meant he called us telepathically. And he said, "Oh, I prayed and I asked God to send them." And then I explained to her what had happened. But that reminds me that it doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing. We may feel the urge to pick up the phone and call someone. We don't know. Or we feel, the urge to invite a friend. Let's go get some ice cream, or let's just go for a ride. I remember when my friend Jennifer was alive, and there were times when I would just go and say, "Come, let's go for a ride." And we just go, just take her for a ride, and sometimes get her some coconut water, and she would say, "How did you know that was what she needed?" Well, I didn't know, but God knows. I'm just saying, and there are times when folks have done things for me, you know, uh, you wouldn't believe, but they've done things, and it was what I needed at the time. So you are an answer to someone's prayers. And just remember that. So when you feel like no one cares, or no one will care about what you're going through, or no one misses your presence, that's not true. That's not true at all. You're cared about, you're loved, and you are an answer to someone's prayer. So do whatever you have to do to distract your thoughts from going in the negative, and take them into the positive by doing something positive for someone and for yourself. Remember, if you like flowers, get flowers. If you like coffee, go get some coffee. Whatever it is, do something for you, because you are the answer to someone's prayers. Know that. I love you, and God loves all of us so much more. Have a wonderful night. I don't even know what to entitle this, but this is what it is. I guess coping, or you're the answer. So whatever you like. And if you know of someone who could use this message, remember, I'm going to upload it to my YouTube channel. I am Flo, F-L-O, Chang-Ageda on my YouTube channel. And for those who don't know who I am, if this message comes across to you now, I am Florencia Chang-Ageda. I'm just going to check to see if, I know everybody is doing something, but let me check to see if anybody at all is watching at this particular time. And if someone's watching, hold on, let me check. If anyone's watching, if not, and no one's on. But at whatever point in time that this message reaches you, if it appeals to you or you know someone that it appeals to, if they're not on Facebook, if they're on Facebook, share it with them, send it in Messenger, share it however you choose to share it with them. If they are not on Facebook, then you can go to my YouTube channel of Flo, F-L-O, Chang-Ageda, and you can share it with them. So have a wonderful weekend and enjoy the rain, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the weather, because you are loved. Good night.